right, we're on.
Okay, we call to order the regular meeting of the Design Review Subcommittee for Wednesday, February 28th. And let's start with the approval of the minutes. Gentlemen, you get a chance to review those?
Yep. Okay.
I have no changes.
Okay,
I'll move approval.
I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hey, Jonathan's not supposed to give it to him.
Give it to Adam. Watch the cord.
Okay, so let's move on to our architectural review. We have two items today. Item A, site plan permit 23-265, Hotel Clement and Loretta's Restaurant at 229 Avenida Del Mar. And Mr. Carrillo is going to give us our presentation, yes?
Yes, and I'll also note that the applicant, Michael Luna, will have a presentation as well for the team. Michael, you want to introduce your team?
Yes, I'm here with Mr. Mike Sims, owner and developer of the project. Also Mr. Jim Lynch, who's sitting over here, project manager with the Sims Group. I'm here with Mike Bunganic, landscape architect, and Wendy Tinsley from Urbana Preservation.
All right. Thank you. So the project's location is at 229 Avenida Del Mar. Here's a quick preview on the general location of it. It's at the bottom end of Avenida Del Mar. Avenida Del Mar is identified as the solid yellow line there, and we see the project site where the star is at. This image shows other historic properties. So 229 is here at the bottom, and then right across the street we have another historic resource at 228. We have one down the street at 222, and then we have the community center across the street, right behind the library. So the project consists of 5 parcels that will be merged. They're highlighted here. We have 3 lots that are facing Avenida Del Mar, and then 2 lots that are facing Granada at the rear. And again, the historic resources at 229. The project site has 2 zones in blue. Here we have MU 3.0. These would be the lots that are facing Avenida Del Mar. And then the lots at the rear facing Granada would be MU 3.3 with the same overlaid architectural, central business, and the coastal zone. Some background on the historic property where the project is taking place. This is known as the Antoinette Apartments. It was constructed in 1928 within the Holy Hansen period of development. It was originally constructed as a multi-family residential project, I believe for 4 units. Its architect is not known, and obviously we see the Spanish colonial revival architecture as one of the reasons for its listing. To the left is a picture of the building. Circa 1980, there was a front office addition. We see that here. It's now being occupied, continues to be occupied by Century 21. And the picture to the right is a more up-to-date picture of existing conditions. And here's an aerial view of the left elevation. There was a fire, I think the historic consultant can confirm this, but there was a fire, I think in 1954, that triggered some improvements, and also the infill of some windows that used to exist on this elevation. So before we move on, the project will be taking place on this side of the property where the vacant lot is, and then on this parcel behind the building. So the project is a Spanish colonial revival boutique hotel with a restaurant. It'll include 28 hotel rooms and 106 restaurant seats. There will be a rooftop deck. Outdoor seating will be provided at 16 seats, which will be in this front portion here along Avenida Del Mar. Part of the project is to restore character-defining features that were lost over time through the fire and just changes that the previous owner made. And again, this is a rendering of the project as viewed from Avenida Del Mar. Here's a rendering of the project as viewed from Granada. It's the applicant's intent to have this look more like a residential project from here, given that it's adjacent, facing a more residential neighborhood. And ingress and egress will be from Granada. The ingress will be provided from the uncovered driveway, and then the egress will be through this covered lane. Here's a site plan. We have Avenida Del Mar will be here, and Avenida Granada, and we see the ingress to the property from Granada, and the egress over here on this side, which again will be the covered drive aisle. Right here, I'll note that the project consists of two buildings. Right, we have a building that will be attached to the historic building, and then we have one that will be detached at the rear. So the reason why we're here again is to have a design review subcommittee provide feedback on these items here: visual and physical impacts of projects on historic resources, the architectural quality and style, massing, scale, proportions, landscaping, along with its consistency with the Secretary of Interior standards. On the Secretary of Interior standards, the applicant did provide a historical resource analysis report. It concluded that it is consistent with the standards. It is currently being reviewed by the third party at the moment. We have not received the final memo yet. As far as development standards, the project is in compliance with standards such as height, setbacks, and landscaping. There is a shared parking component to the project that is also being reviewed by a third party, given that this is a study and something that they can propose when you have a hotel use to satisfy parking. So in the staff report that was prepared, it was determined that the project is generally consistent with design guidelines and general plan policies. So staff is recommending that the design review subcommittee provide feedback on the project and a determination on whether the project is ready for a public hearing. However, staff is recommending that we come back a second round if the peer reviews come back with comments that need to be addressed. Yeah. And that concludes my portion. I'll turn it over to Michael.
Before you do that, can you
Yeah.
tell us what is the whole approval process going to entail? We're obviously at the beginning, planning
Yeah.
is first, and then us, and then what all permits are they going to be needing?
I think it's listed here. There's a site plan permit, cultural heritage permit, and conditional use permit. That'll be subject to planning commission review.
So it's going to be approved at the planning commission level?
Correct.
It's also the coastal zone, right?
It is within the coastal zone.
Okay. So we'll need coastal approval.
Yes. Coastal
Okay.
commission approval.
You guys are aware of that?
Is Carla here?
The de facto IT guy.
Yeah. There you go.
Nice work.
Good switch.
Went from Hulu to.
Well, thank you very much, David, and thank you all very much for everybody for being here today. We put a lot of work and a lot of thought into this project. Tried to take very careful steps along each step, through every corner and turn of this project, realizing the importance of this site and where it's located. Needless to say, Del Mar has not received a new development. This is the last two vacant parcels on Del Mar that remain, so it's quite an honor to work on this project. What I would like to do today is run you through a PowerPoint presentation, and when we're done with that, I'll run you through a 3D representation of the project, which I think will help you visualize this project overall. The PowerPoint presentation, we already did introduce the team, but I do want to hear a little bit more from Mike Sims about it so that you understand who the Sims Group is, and what they've done and who they are. I'd like to take you through the design context of this project and the inspiration that drove me and our team. Talk more a little bit about the project description, the project design, the different components of the design, walk you through those and how they got put in place. Talk to you about, we're going to turn it over at that point to Urbana Preservation and talk about historic revitalization component of this project. Mike Sims will talk further after that about the on-site parking strategy. Mike McGannick will talk about the landscape design. Then I'll do hopefully a brief walkthrough in the 3D and aspect, and then in summary I'll make a few closing statements if I may.
Is there an intermission?
Yeah. Popcorn's going to be arriving as well. So, with that, I would like Mike, turn it over to Mike and just talk about this slide a little bit and get so you all understand who it is who's the actual applicant on this project.
So my name's Mike Sims. Thank you very much for having us here today. So our core of our family's operations is restaurants. We're third generation, grandfather, and my dad started a group of restaurants called Mimi's Cafe 45 years ago, and then my brother got involved and started a group of restaurants called Lazy Dog Restaurants. I personally own and operate restaurants from Huntington Beach up through El Segundo. We bought the two parcels, my dad, my brother, and I bought the two parcels, I believe almost 8 years ago, with the intent of developing them into a restaurant. My background is, my education background is hospitality or hotels. So I teamed up with a college buddy of mine that's in the hotel industry, which is Cooper Wind Companies, and we're looking at this property, saw it as an opportunity to do a boutique hotel and restaurant, so combine the two of our expertises. I think it's unique. A lot of projects I see come through cities. I'm quite involved in Manhattan Beach through the different organizations, and you often see a developer develop it and then lease it out to an operator. We'll be both. So, essentially all the sins that we create in this process, I'll be living with. So ideally there won't be a lot. So we're excited to be here. It's been a couple year ride, and I know it's going to be a few more before we see the first doors open, but this is the beginning of it, so just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I do want to also touch on some of the steps that we took early on. And again, thanks to city staff, we had several productive meetings when we started conceptualizing this project with staff. Staff's been very helpful in helping us guide our project as well. We also, as part of our homework and our due diligence on this, as in our research and community outreach, we did reach out to the Historical Society, had a meeting with them, hosted a meeting with them. We also hosted the Downtown Business Association, Chamber of Commerce, neighbors, and we also had meetings with the Coastal Commission about our endeavor. And so far, Coastal Commission's been very, very supportive, and including the other groups that we've met with. But now I'd like to talk to you about the design context. We did get an idea of where this thing sits. We know where it sits. But what inspired me about this opportunity, and what I came to right away, was the old historic Hotel Del Mar, and what a vital role it played throughout the history of town and how it evolved. My grandfather actually resided in that hotel when I was very, very young. And so I know the hotel well, and it was a catapult for this town, a place for folks to come and visit and so forth, and during the early years of this city. And so what inspired me is I said to myself, how can we carry that to the 200 block? And so it seemed to make a lot of sense, because in actuality, in the downtown core, we have no other hotels. There is no other hotels. There's a tiny little bed and breakfast, but the accommodations, I think, are limited at that small facility. So there's an opportunity here to, I think, bring something really vital to the 200 block. We tried to design the project to certainly support visitors serving commercial, but it's also designed to support group activities associated with street fairs, car shows, holiday festivals. We know what goes on down there. And this can definitely support that with the restaurant use. There's meeting space, hotel rooms, and so forth. So it seems like it can be really helpful to the downtown core, particularly the 200 block. We think that the design portrays San Clemente's small town beach character, in that it's only 28 rooms. We're not proposing a 100-room hotel here. It's a boutique hotel, specialty, small facility. It definitely can extend the activity from the 100 block into the 200 block, which I know is a goal of the city. It certainly will support the downtown businesses. It certainly meets the goals of the pedestrian overlay district. The way it's designed, it's absolutely transparent from the sidewalk, and it'll charge up that sidewalk, I think, in a very strong way. And what is, and it also extends our Ole Hansen, sorry for Mr. Hansen's spelling there, a style of architecture to the 200 block. What's missing in our downtown? Overnight accommodation, quality overnight accommodations. And these higher quality accommodations that we're proposing are typically not found in San Clemente. So many folks, from personal experience, a family come in or something, I've heard this so many times, they end up going to our other nearby cities to stay, because we just don't have a really nice, higher quality hotel in our city. It provides an opportunity to stay, dine, shop, and visit our Pier Bowl without the need for a car. It does and can provide a closer link to the Pier Bowl. Folks staying in this facility can absolutely stroll down to the beach, and the project will support our bicycling and surfing activities. We're providing a fleet of bicycles to the guests as part of our accommodation. Surfing activities will be supported. There's going to be a rinse-off shower and change area designated in the storage area for surfboards, for those folks that bring their surfboards. To be sure, or actually to provide clarity, at 28 guest rooms, 21 of those rooms will be at standard rate, 7 will be deemed affordable. This is a requirement of the Coastal Commission that 25% of the rooms have to be affordable. We've embraced that requirement and incorporated it into our project. Our project proposes a passive rooftop deck for hotel guests only. A place for hotel guests to go onto the roof and enjoy our ocean views that are available. There's a nice lobby lounge that's open for anybody to enjoy. They can pop in and enjoy our lounge. The restaurant, for clarity, it is 100 seats in the main dining room, 30 private seats, well, the main dining room including the patio, 30 private dining seats at the basement, and a sidewalk-connected patio dining area. This project will reinforce an existing pedestrian link between Granada and Del Mar. We're looking to enhance that, embrace that, and build up that connection. And so we're providing that. The other thing you know about the project is that it is proposed at 100% valet parking service as part of this operation. I'm going to walk you through the site plan. I'd like to point out that we have two buildings in our proposal. There's the Del Mar building, which is annexed and incorporated the existing two-story historic building, which is actually known as the Antoinette Apartments originally. The second building is the Granada building. We would have liked to be able to connect these buildings directly, but for a few reasons, really can't do it. First of which is that we have an existing utility easement running between the two buildings, and secondly, it brings the structure, we think, too close to the rear of the historic building. So it's a two-building proposal with all the vehicular access coming in off of Granada and exiting off of Granada as well. There'll be no vehicular traffic in or out of Avenida Del Mar. The first floor is comprised of a main entrance. I don't know if you might be able to see my slide or my mouse. Yes, no. Can you see that?
Yeah, we saw it.
Zoomed across.
Okay, so at the main entrance, we step into a nice lobby area. To the right of that is a lobby lounge, which is actually technically a 1980s addition to the Antoinette building. The Antoinette building on the southern side of this, on the lower side of this plan, will be converted to a guest room and restrooms serving this level. There's an elevator in the middle of the plan, and then you step through to the plan north into the upper portion of the floor plan, and you can see that we walk right by or out into the outdoor dining courtyard. It's a big main bar, and we have the kitchen up at the top of the plan. The second floor of the Del Mar building is all guest rooms. The rooftop deck, you can see this layout again. I want to stress that this is passive. This is not open to the general public. You got to be staying in this hotel or a guest of the hotel to take advantage of this space. The right side of that floor plan, of that area up there, is a 6-foot wall hiding a mechanical area to the right. It will also help shield any noise from going to the Granada side of the project. So with a 6-foot wall, it provides privacy and so forth. The other thing, having done rooftop decks before, is that we try to locate the rooftop decks in the middle of the plan so that they're more stealth. They're kind of hidden. They blend into the sloping roofs. It's really going to be hard to tell that there's even a rooftop deck up here because of where it's situated. And indeed, again, we want to take advantage of ocean views up here for guests. There is a basement in the Del Mar building. That's where private dining will be held, and additional kitchen areas and hotel storage, backup storage, and workspace for the kitchen. An elevator on the lower part of the plan serves all levels of this building. The Granada building is a 2-story building, and it has entirely covered parking with proposed car lifts on the first floor, and This is, again, all managed by 100% by valet service persons who are trained to operate these lifts. That's the first floor, and the second floor has guest rooms. A quick note on project compliance. Indeed, the project complies with all development criteria that we can find, or that staff's been able to find so far, including height, floor area ratio, open urban area, etc. Parking is met per parking study, which the zoning ordinance allows, certainly in this downtown zone. And it complies with urban design M 4.04, which encourages us to utilize from our our urban design guide, from our general plan update, to establish and work and study alternative parking strategies. It says we, being the city, consider alternative parking strategies that address multimodal parking needs, improve the use efficiency, and enhance environmental quality, such as the use of energy-saving generating features, demand-based parking strategies, stacking, alternative paving, and accommodating multiple uses. And that's from our own code. And part of our project is going to preserve and revitalize and reinforces our historic structure that exists for that building. The urban design guidelines talks further about courtyards and a paseo, anytime we can connect street to streets. And all of these things will enhance the pedestrian experience. It certainly reinforces our project, the central business overlay, by providing overnight accommodations, more shoppers. Folks can certainly visit other restaurants, etc. And the way we've designed the project, we feel it looks like it's developed over time. The pattern of development in this downtown is zero lot line, all the way up and down, from the top of the T-zone all the way down. Has been the pattern of development in terms of the commercial development that exists. We are compatible two-story development, visitor and tourist serving commercial. And as far as architectural guidelines are concerned, we have enhanced building modulation, both vertically and horizontally. The project utilizes white smooth stucco with slight undulations, all of the Spanish components that we're used to working with and require. We're absolutely embracing all of that and don't expect to deviate from that at all. The on-site parking strategy, I'd like to, at this point, turn it over to Mike Sims to talk a little bit about the parking strategy and proposal for this project.
Would you mind passing out the study that we have?
Yes.
I'm not going to, so thank you once again, in an effort to keep it brief. So the study that we do have is it's still under review. We haven't yet to receive comments back or any first round comments. So I'm just going to keep it more at a higher level of as I mentioned, first, what the parking study findings found is the table 1, which shows the first column of city code. When you add up all the uses together independently, it equals a gross required 56. With a shared analysis using the Urban Land Institute numbers, that number comes down to 34. And then based off of staff feedback originally, we went out and sought a compatible hotel in a beach town, namely my hometown, which is the Shade Hotel. It's, I think, 48 rooms with a full restaurant, roof deck, and actually a quite large event center. We calculated on we did car counts on a weekday at 100% occupancy and on a weekend at 100% occupancy, and based off of those numbers, and then adding a 13% contingency on top of that, it created a future demand of 29 cars. We're intending to supply 35 spaces, which would be obviously more than 29. There's some form of a credit. I wish our parking consultant was here more so to talk in depth of that. However, we still I feel confident as the operator supplying 35 cars, knowing the information that we have now. Next slide. Next slide. With that number of cars, to keep it as efficient as possible, we will have a 24 valet operation on site. We do have to have staff on premise since it is a hotel 24 hours. So everybody that will be trained with those overnight, that will be working those overnights, will be trained in how to retrieve cars from the lift operations. We've worked with a friend of ours who does also our valet operations at our other restaurants, Parking Company of America, to put together an operations plan, help us understand the best way to utilize our lots and train our staff to do it efficiently. All staging of the valet service will be on site, so there's no intention of cars backing up onto Granada. With the on-site valet services, it really does provide a clear and reliable form of parking for our guests. They know where to park, they know how to enter, they know who to text to get their car, and such. And then with that, we always also like to encourage alternate forms of transportation. E-bikes, I know, are a huge issue in our neighborhood, for better and worse. I'm sure they are here as well. And we'll utilize those to offer to our staff, mainly our guests, but also our staff. So if they'd like to lease them or borrow them to get between mass transit stops, we'd be more than happy to. We'll also have one of those electric golf carts, neighborhood electric vehicle, to take our guests down to the beach, around town. Also move our staff between transit spots as well. Next slide.
So real quick on
yes.
that. Your employee parking. So can you just address that?
Sure.
Because is that where you're going? I didn't.
That's next.
Oh, God, never mind, sorry. I should have read the slide, I was just listening to you.
Sure.
Okay.
So on to employee parking. Parking will be provided for employees on site as well, and utilizing the lifts first, because they will be on premise for the longest amount of time compared to restaurant
So that's
guests.
part of your 35.
Yes, yeah. It's part of the study as well, is showing that. The preference is for teammates to utilize bike transportation, mass transit. We've encouraged our staff in other locations that we have to do so by helping attain e-bikes for them, as well as providing subsidies for mass transit, whether it's bus passes or metro passes or anything of that nature. And then for the convenience of our employees, we also use the NEV, the electric vehicle, to move them around town as well, especially for mass transit. And then, which is unique to San Clemente, which I love, is the trolley schedule as well, which is a continuously looped people mover, essentially. Does that answer most of your questions, or?
I got one. I think in our packet it had mentioned that another option was parking agreements. Are you anticipating any off-site parking agreements to take overflow or to take any of the staff parking?
So we have spoken to our neighbors, and both at Kinko's and to the north, which is the development just the north of us, about potential shared parking agreements. They really haven't been interested in deeding anything to their property, but have said verbally so far that on-off hours, which Kinko's is after 7 p.m. every night and closed 24 hours on Sunday, like closed all day Sunday, that the parking would be available to use for overflow, staging, potential employees and such.
Yeah, I just think you have a good project here that is probably the one area we're really concerned. Del Mar is just overparked.
Let's just let them finish.
Yeah, well, I just want to express the concern that you really think about that, because I don't think that the employee thing, I think you could deal with better.
Okay.
Yeah, like way off-site. Because that Kinko's, that's used by residents all the time when they know it's closed and they go park there all the time.
Okay.
It's like packed. It's not like open.
Yeah.
Yeah, even Sunday mornings, it's packed.
Okay.
I just wanted to share that.
And then also deliveries and refuse will be taken on the Granada site as well. So our trash cans are located, I've already met with the waste company to strategize on size of bins, location, how to access them so that they're essentially located. And then we do, since we do operate in beach towns, we are very cognizant of neighbors and how adjacent neighbors take priority in making sure that we don't have trucks backing up in the middle of the night and the compressors running. And we also have residents on site since it is a hotel, so we'll have to be very conscious of deliveries and timing and schedules for those as well. I think that was it. That was the last
Okay, the other thing I would add is about the parking study, and I'm sure you'll study it, but that obvious overlap in use. Somebody staying at the hotel, very good chance they're going to have their meals in the hotel. Okay, so we can't just absolutely double whammy, double charge.
I think your allowances were very fair, the 30 and 20%. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to make that
No,
clear.
I have no issues with that.
With that, thank you, Mike. I'd like to turn it over to Wendy
Great.
to talk about the historic Antoinette Apartments.
Great, thanks, Michael. Staff touched a little bit on the history of the building, and I'll take you through a few slides to reinforce some of that and add a few more details.
May I interrupt you?
Sure.
Thank you. Can you tell them a little bit about Urbana and all the things
Sure.
you've worked on?
Yeah, I know. I've met you a few times. I'm Wendy Tinsley Becker, Principal of Urbana Preservation and Planning. I'm based out of San Diego. I'm a native San Diegan, grew up in South Mission Beach. And I have staff in 3 states. We work all over the country for the National Park Service, primarily, obviously, in the Southwest and California. And so I've been working with Michael for, about 5 years now, I would say. Something like that. We work quite a bit on historic rehabilitations, federal rehabilitation tax credit projects that go through SHPO, National Park Service, architectural review. We work on CEQA analysis, both as developer, applicant, consultant, and as extension of staff for different jurisdictions. I've served as an expert witness in numerous state and federal cases for historic preservation concerns. We work on designations, rehabs, permits, across the gamut. So we're very familiar, obviously, with historical resource requirements and compliance with the Secretary of the Interior standards. And we're here today to walk you through the history of the Antoinette Apartments and how it sort of ties in with the new construction. It's one important component of a larger project. Next slide, Michael. So David touched a little bit on the history of the building. It was originally constructed in 1928. We do have a single newspaper article attributing the original design to Virgil Westbrook, who's obviously a well-known master architect here. He's identified as really being associated with the majority of designs in early San Clemente history. The building was commissioned by Abraham Code. That was the original owner. He was a contractor based out of Alhambra. His wife is Antoinette, and when the building was completed, he named it the Antoinette Apartments after his wife. It was originally constructed to include 4 above-grade apartment units and 1 or 2 basement units. The record is a little shaky on that, so we're going to just go ahead and say 1 or 2. In 1959, right after Thanksgiving, in November of 1959, there was a fire, so most of the damage occurred at the rear and in the basement area. In 1980, the front elevation addition occurred, and I know staff mentioned that the left side windows were all infilled as part of the fire, but what we speculate based on limited drawings from the 1980 campaign is that a lot of those windows on that left side next to the vacant parcel were infilled as part of that campaign, presumably because they were rearranging the floor plan for offices, and for whatever reason the windows just didn't work out.
May I add something right here?
Of course, Michael.
Thank you. Yeah, so the windows on what I'll call the north side, left side of the Antoinette building, I think what happened is that there were some land sales or something. These lots got sold.
Yeah.
And at that point, I think the city doing their job, They established the lot line right as a zero lot line, and code just doesn't allow any openings any longer when that was done. And for fire reasons, in terms of fire breaking, spreading from one building to another across the property line. And with that property line there, those windows had to be closed up to meet code.
And so that zero lot line characteristic, I assume it might come up later in some of our discussions. So the property was designated in 2006, 2007 as part of the kind of citywide designation effort. The building is associated with two contexts. The first is the Ole Hansen Spanish Village by the Sea, and the second is obviously Spanish colonial revival architecture. The period of significance for the building is 1928, marking completion of construction. Next slide. So we have some historic images here. The larger one on the left is from 1928. It's a newspaper image marking completion of the building. The building was advertised for rent in the fall of 1928. And then this is a postcard from 1936 on the right side. We can see that left elevation. I know I'm using left and right quite a bit. And those are the original fenestration that have now been infilled. Next slide, please. So here's a image from the 1959 fire. It's actually helpful. It gives us a little more detail. And we can see the original wood balconies. We can see the curved solid balustrade wall to that exterior stair with original Spanish motif tile on the risers. We see wrought iron railing. We see multiple arch features that are extant today. Then in the upper right, that's an image from 1980. We found that actually at the San Clemente Historical Society. They had a book that had been donated, a photo album of the property. So we worked with the Historical Society to go in and scan some of those images so that the owners can use them for the rehab process and potentially as artwork throughout the property. The owner, Norma Westby, commissioned professional photography of the building, and she actually sent it into a California history journal. So there's a one-page feature of the building within this history journal that we were able to locate. We suspect that she knew she was selling it. It was going to undergo an alteration, and she wanted to sort of capture its essence before it was altered. So this is the after. In 1980, Century 21 came in with new ownership, and the front single-story volume was added. So, that front elevation has experienced a pretty significant change. There are some elements that remain, and as part of future sites, we'll show you what is going to be retained and repaired and what will be rehabilitated. Next
So was
slide.
it registered after
It
the
was,
addition?
yeah, and the prior site records that we have don't acknowledge the addition. So, I can tell as soon as I walked up to it, I went, oh, that's an addition, right? And we all see it. But I just think that when the prior survey was occurring, they weren't really scoped to be looking for that. They were scoped to find everything that Spanish revival style and add it to the inventory. So
So the addition is not considered significant?
the addition, we would consider it non-contributing, correct?
Perfect.
But it is part of the registered.
In any other
Building.
process, we would say that this building's not eligible because it's experienced a substantial change at the front elevation. But in this process, it's been designated with the addition on it, although it wasn't acknowledged. So we regard it as non-contributing, but we also sort of embrace the building as a historical resource because it's been designated.
Is it okay to ask a question, Steve, at this time?
Yeah, I think we're getting.
Did you, in your review of that, ever consider the advantages of removing that altogether and restoring the building back to its original appearance?
We did, and we anticipated, I've talked with ownership about that, and we anticipated that this would be a discussion point, so, yeah. I
That's
think-
exactly what it is,
Yeah.
a discussion point.
Yeah.
It's a discussion point. We've thought about it, and when it's really, it's a significant amount of square footage, interior square footage for a property that we purchased independently. And so it would be very difficult from a financial component to remove that square footage, just because it was advertised as as is of the building that we purchased, and you know, at this time we purchased it with that square footage, so it's pretty tough to go backwards.
So the approach that's proposed is a little bit of a compromise. It's rehabilitation, not restoration, right? It provides a higher level of reuse and adaptation for new uses while still respecting the existing character-defining features and enhancing it in a historically appropriate manner as possible. So these are the extant character-defining features from that 1928 period of significance. The terracotta roof tile, the multi-hipped roof with eave overhang and exposed rafter tails, obviously the stucco exterior. We see some original horizontal fenestration along the front and the right side elevation, which is the parking lot side, and then at the rear as well. We have original wood balconies intact, partially intact at the front elevation and fully intact at that right side. The exterior staircases, there's the second level staircase with the solid curved balustrade wall, and then there's actually a lower level staircase with just a couple steps that's currently blocked by that non-historic wall in the upper right. Then we have some remaining monochromatic mosaic tiles at porch landings. So there's a unit at the lower rear through that arched portalway, which is also character defining. And then there's units up at the top, and those landings have little 1x1 monochromatic tiles that are extant. And then obviously the arches, there's multiple arched elements that exist, and then the wood doors. All of the 4 original units seem to have their original wood doors, which is actually pretty impressive that they've survived almost 100 years. Next slide, please. So we've taken you through some of the changes. In addition to the front elevation addition, all of the fenestration was filled in at the left on that vacant parcel side, as Michael and I touched on. Some of the original tile has been removed from the exterior stair. We have additional photos that aren't in this presentation that are detailed views of the original tile, and those will inform selection of replacement tile as part of the rehab effort. We see that there was wrought iron railing on that lower staircase based on the 1928 and 1959 newspaper articles. So that informs selection for that feature. And then, you know, some of these sort of unknown changes. At the rear elevation, we see original openings, or what we perceive as original openings, but the operable window units have been replaced with like aluminum sliders. So those are all planned to go back to multi-light wood sash units. And then, of course, that partition wall at the lot line there, which is sort of obstructing the view of some of the historic features. Next slide, Michael. Thanks. So a little existing and proposed, and all of these are in the historic report as well. I have copies here if anyone is interested. So the front elevation, it's really premised on retaining the 1980 volume for square footage purposes. The upper wall, the second level wall, that balcony, these drawings have actually been updated, as you'll see in Michael's renderings. The wood balcony will be restored above the 1980 addition. And then at the right side elevation, that's really where the bulk of the rehab effort is going to be focused. It's, you know, obviously considered sort of the principal character defining elevation at this point. It's the one that remains the most intact. The wood balconies will be retained or repaired. If too damaged to repair, they'll be replaced in kind. As I stated, the historic tile will be retained, repaired, and new compatible matching tile will be installed. The arched features will be retained. All of the original window openings will be retained, and the new wood windows using historic photos as a guide will be installed. It's one thing that I'm actually a little surprised. You know, a lot of the time our clients tend to push back and say, can we just get like aluminum clad? And on this one, I haven't heard that pushback. So it's a good thing. These drawings are still in flux. The multi-light divide pattern is not shown fully on all these windows, but the intent is to, you know, use proper historic wood windows. Next slide, Michael. So last one for me, we assert that this project conforms to the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. There will be a new use proposed, and compliance with those standards allows for that new use. It's not a reconstruction or restoration or straight preservation effort, so the project is not being evaluated against those treatment standards. In sum, these 3 points, the project will retain and repair or replace in kind when to damage, and that refers to the stucco, the roof tile, the wood balconies, historic fenestration, wood doors, and wood windows. It will reconstruct or install missing or remove features using the available historic images, so that would be the tile and windows at multiple locations, and then the related new construction. As Michael walks you through the next few slides with the models, you'll see that there's been a concerted effort to retain and protect the historic roofline where the building will be annexed to the new construction, and the actual connection point to the new construction is on an altered facade on the addition of the building. So we think that we understand there's interest in retaining the front elevation, removing the front elevation addition, but we at least see that as an opportunity to connect the new construction without further impacting the historic integrity of the building. So that's the vehicle to annex old with new. I think that's it for me.
Okay, the other thing I would just additionally add is that our work within the Antoinette building has been done very carefully around, we designed around all of the existing historic openings, historic doors. So we converted the interior from office space to guest rooms and so forth on the interior of the building, but we did so by not moving a single window or door
Right.
that exists today. We absolutely designed with them. The only changes that we're actually adding is just putting windows back where they were originally placed, so we can take advantage of better ocean views. With that, I'd like to turn it over to our landscape architect to talk about the landscape concept.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Hi, my name is Michael Beganik, landscape architect, part of the design team. I've worked with Michael Luna. Guys, I met Michael Luna in the early 80s. That's quite a while ago. We've completed numerous projects over the years, multifamily, single-family residential projects, and the Valencia building, which is under construction or nearing completion, is our most recent one, and that is going to be ready for landscaping here probably any week. So, the design concept for the landscape architecture was to integrate the features that you find in the Spanish colonial revival style and Ole Hansen style for the boutique hotel and restaurant. Some of these features and some of the objectives include the outdoor dining courtyards. We have two courtyards, the dining courtyard for the restaurant, and then we have the courtyard for the valet services. We also wanted to have pedestrian connections from street to street. There's a nice new sidewalk going to be on Granada that's going to be put in allow for pedestrian circulation there. We wanted to introduce a lot of enhanced paving for vehicular and pedestrian in the courtyards as well. And also we wanted to integrate two custom Spanish type tiled wall fountains, one of them in the restaurant courtyard and one in the valet courtyard. Other site amenities include some decorative pottery, bench seating, and we have bike racks, which Michael's pointing to right now. And of course, the landscape planting, we have palms, several variety of palms, shade trees. We have a really nice shade specimen tree at the valet courtyard. And we'll be having succulents and various native plant material throughout the project. The following couple slides will show you some images of site amenities and plant material palette, but let's focus on the restaurant courtyard right now. The courtyard will have a low plastered wall along the front with pilasters and terracotta caps. On top of the pilasters will be some really nice decorative potted plants. The paving in the courtyard, we're going to want to try to match what's going on with the interior, but I really see a really nice porcelain tile of some sort in that restaurant area. And of course, the wall fountain will be custom Spanish tiled, really special courtyard. We have 2 palm trees in that courtyard you can see there, and they'll be integrated with an ADA compliant tree grate, so there won't be any hazards for outdoor dining. And of course, Michael has a real heavy wood beam trellis feature connecting the courtyard with an overhead plane, probably for lights and things, Tivoli lights. We have the West Paseo that connects Avenida Del Mar. Traveling through the project there, it goes through the valet courtyard and then around the parking building, and it connects all the way to Granada. There's another on the east side. There's a pedestrian connection on the side of the building that will go east and west, or is that north and south? North and south, and connect to the parking, the driveway area, and out to Granada. And the entrance drive, the enhanced paving in the driveway on the east side, we have 7 decorative vine trellises with bougainvillea vines. We're pretty tight with some of the dimensions that we need to keep to for driveway widths. And so we designed a series of enhanced paving. And at the end of the drive aisle there, you'll see there's like an enhanced rosette focal point in the turnaround area by the handicap spaces. The valet courtyard will have, like I say, we'll have a nice specimen shade tree, a nice beautiful specimen fruitless olive. Underneath it will be furniture seating, very nice high-end seating for people to wait for their cars. And then in that area, we also have the second decorative wall fountain. That's pretty much very quickly the landscape. Here's some of the images here for the design concepts of showing you pottery, some examples of some seating. We haven't selected the final materials and furniture yet, but there's options for wood bench, metal seating, concrete seating. Shows some examples of some bike racks, some decorative pots with bougainvilleas, the tree grates, and some special paving images. The next slide here is the plant material palette. We have several varieties of palm trees to select from. We have a lot of succulents, a lot of agaves and aloes and flaxes, daylilies, and some California native plant material. All the landscape will be irrigated with subsurface, very drought-tolerant type irrigation systems, and we will be way under the allowable water use, and we'll have full water calcs to support that. So I'll be happy to answer any questions if anybody has anything.
Can you also talk about the roof deck landscaping, especially anything that might be visible,
Okay.
From Del Mar?
The rooftop area was designed by Michael's office with the consultant. Did you have something? But the landscaping will all be in subsurface type irrigation, in pottery, maybe Corten steel, possibly doing some precast planters with watering inserts to keep the water off the roof. Self-watering is really the way to go there. and there won't be any trees or any, it'll all be fairly low plant material. Nothing that would get any higher than an umbrella.
Let me clarify that, Mike. Nothing higher than the guardrail.
Guardrail? Okay.
Yeah, that was our design intent.
I think the highest feature would probably be atop of an umbrella, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you do have a trellis?
Yeah, we do, yeah, in terms of floating furniture or plants,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, we do have a trellis,
No intent to have any vines or anything on any of the
No.
trellises?
not currently, no.
No.
Okay. Okay, you guys finished?
All right, yeah, what do we got? Okay, we got a little bit more to go. In summary, if I may. Again, I want to stress this, a small boutique hotel, 28 rooms, compatible with Del Mar, compatible with residential in Granada, symbiotic with special events, respects and revitalizes the Antoinette building, provides high quality overnight accommodations, season management. And on the right, I want to show you an image that was generated by our interior designer. The interior designer of this hotel is Wimberley Interiors. Wimberley Interiors is a subsidiary of Wimberley, Allison, Tong, and Gu. Wimberley at W18G is the most noteworthy, the most outstanding worldwide architect doing hospitality projects. They're the number one in the architectural firm in the world. We have hired their interiors division to do our interiors. Wimberley Interiors is considered to be one of the top 10 firms literally in the world. We're going to have really exquisite rooms, suites. They're doing the restaurant, the lounge, and so all the interior design. So this has already been thought through and planned with them. And with that, I'd like to close the...
Before you go on, the interiors, is it planned to be compatible with the Spanish colonial revival?
Yes.
Unlike another new building?
Yes, so if we look at these interiors, we can see some terracotta materials, but yet at the same time, guests today are requiring some more modern features. They have worked very hard at blending our history, our architectural style with the interiors, but yet with a modern twist, which travelers, upscale travelers, are looking for it. I don't know if you want to talk further about that, Mike.
I think
And
that
actually, the
that
project
answers
manager is a resident of San Clemente as well, so she's familiar with the zone and the site and all the extras that go with it.
With that, I'd like to really share this with you.
What software do you use for your?
Revit, and with an add-on program called Inkscape that does our 3D renderings. You can see where the bike racks are. You can see where we've held the new construction set back from the historic second floor. We can show you that.
Do you want me to walk them through some of the historic features?
Sure, if you don't
Okay.
mind. Yeah.
So I think that connection point between the new construction and the existing historic roof is an important one. That really speaks more to Standard 10, David, which it sounds like the preliminary feedback is that our peer reviewer feels that it does comply with Standard number 10. The project has been designed in a way such that the original roof line from 15 feet back will be retained. It will be encapsulated in a soffit. And a small flat roof will be installed between the new construction and the historic massing, but it will preserve all of the original roof line, the original eaves, the original rafter tails, and the first 15 feet will be separated by several feet wide in order to still give the appearance that this is a separate structure. Going down below, Michael, I see that you did update the balcony there in the front. So the second level front elevation of the Antoinette's building, we can see that the original wood balcony will be brought back partially. The non-historic stucco wall that's currently extant will be removed, and this will be rebuilt using historic imagery. The ground floor staircase will be brought back using historic photos as a guide. And Michael, you've got a little like door recession there. That's actually because that's a door currently. It's a non-historic door. The plan is to return that to a window as it historically existed.
So that balcony is being carved into the,
That balcony
Existing
on
roof.
this side exists.
Yes, it
so does
does.
it carve into the roof at that point in the front?
Well,
That's how it
exists now.
exists currently.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just there's a solid wall in the front.
And again, we're not proposing any new work to this Antoinette building other than to repair and put back in kind what it originally existed when it, out of its period of significance, from its period of significance.
So some other details that don't appear in the modeling here are the like tile details. So on the curved balustrade at the second level staircase there, we have historic photos from the historic photo album that shows tile detail going up that as a cap. We have details for the tile on the stair treads. And then going along the rear, we can see, the historic arched elements are retained. Michael, I did notice one thing today, and Mike, just for safety purposes, there was originally railing in that open arch on the right side elevation, and we don't have that
Oh,
included,
okay,
and just for safety as well.
we'll get that back in there.
But the wood balconies are going to be repaired and rehabbed. The largest window that's partially obscured by the palm tree on that back, can you go 2 windows over from the arch? There you go, that one. That's been infilled. There's been multiple windows on this elevation that have just been infilled through time. It might be from the Kinko's parking lot going in, things like that. So those will be reintroduced, and you can actually see the ghost lines in the stucco when you're at the building. So it's readily apparent where the patches have occurred. So it will be easy to undo some of those alterations. And then we go into the Granada building at the rear. Michael, should I hand it off, or would you like me to keep talking?
Well, unless you feel, if you want to talk further about the historic
No,
building?
I think we're
all right.
good, yeah.
So
We'll
my
open
goal
up
is I just
questions.
want to try to give you an idea of the overall concept in 3D for some clarity of what our proposal is. For example, oops, sorry about that. I'm back
The
here.
basement.
This experience from the sidewalk, I think, is really important to understand. Large openings here done, try to echo the historic City Hall building openings was the intent with these Moorish arches. You can see the courtyard element in here, the trellis above it.
That's just a guardrail on the larger side on the left. That's not a balcony extension, right?
And there's no balcony extensions over the courtyard. Well, actually,
No, on the front.
oh, yes,
That's just a guardrail.
yes, it's all wrought iron.
It does look like it extends out.
So if we look deeper in here, you can start to see these corbelling. We do have a cantilever of the second floor coming out over the courtyard. You can see the fireplace on the left. Literally, this is what you see from the sidewalk with tile. See a fountain over here. See the entryway.
Except full of people, probably, right?
Yeah, exactly. Except you should know that this gal right here, she's one of planning staff.
Yeah.
City inspector.
Yeah, she's doing the final
Final
checklist.
sign-off.
after the inspection. So we made sure to include her. Our entrance, grand, big arch, deeply recessed glass doors. We've chosen a kind of a beachy theme for our color of the windows and doors. And again, you can see the feeling from the sidewalk itself, this courtyard, how to experience that. We walk further down and we can experience the Antoinette building here. This door will not be operative here. That will be closed shut. We have to control everything through the front door. This paseo, you'll remove this driveway, walking down here. This becomes the paseo through here. And we get back over into here with this pathway, and there'll be additional landscaping. I can't show all of the landscaping to match the landscape plan, but this is the feel. You get back here to this valet auto courtyard back here. You can start to see how this space is intended to function. I'll get some more sunlight in here. This, you can see the back of the historic building unchanged other than
New
stairs
windows.
to the basement, new wood windows, a seating group in here, access to the Granada guest rooms over here. This portion over here is the valet station, so that's kind of in a nice central location in here. If I spin around over here, we can start to get a better feel for the Granada building. And so this is what we see from the from Granada. This building's intended to have a more residential feel. The feeling of a carport on the left side, guest rooms with ocean view, scallop stairway going up, tile treatment, landscaping on this side, the outer courtyard, the rear of the Del Mar building. This rooftop will be all mechanical up here. There's no proposed habitation of that at all. The guest rooms, our intent was to break up this elevation, you know, with this pedestrian paseo. We'll have more landscaping in here. Fortunately, unlike other paseos in town, we do have, because of the way the angle of the property line breaks off, there's more opportunity for landscaping in here. And so we'll fill up some of these arches with vines and so forth. You can see the historic building there is a very prominent component, respected in its entirety. And the rooftop deck. We didn't talk much about the rooftop deck, but you can start to see the feel up here. It's a little oasis, a place to go. You can see over on the right how we have a taller element. This is 6 feet tall, thereby helping to reduce any noise up here from residents in Granada.
Is that a skylight dome or something on the tower?
This is an architectural accent feature. The code allows us, encourages us to provide architectural features, and so we definitely wanted to incorporate a kind of a focal point up here for this facility. It's a small bar up here, catering to guests, not a big one. And with that, unless you have any more questions after that long-winded presentation, thank you for sitting through this, and but hopefully you have a better idea of what we've been working on.
Yeah, very, very nice presentation.
Wonderful tool to get the shadows in there and all for the 360 degree. That's
So let's hear from you guys if you have any questions for staff or for the applicant first.
I'm going to hold my questions until discussion. I'd like to be, if we can get it back and forth during discussion, that'd be great.
Okay. You guys are aware that we're not an approval board. We're here to help get it to a point where planning commission will more readily approve it. So our comments will be in the nature of suggestions or recommendations. But I'm assuming everyone here is not here just to observe. Does anybody from the...
I have one thing to say. 6 or 8 months ago, I visited Michael's office on a different project, and he said this was in the works and gave me just a quick cursory introduction to it.
Okay.
And no comments or promises or anything. And
Indeed.
That's
just wanted that to be known.
in full disclosure.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys are here. I'm sure, Larry, you've got comments. Does anybody else want to have any comments or questions? Okay, so we'll just go through. Anybody that wants to say anything, and just what's that?
Administrator?
I just want to remind everyone, just try not to be redundant. If we hear a comment, then say I agree with that or whatever. So just try to be as concise as you can. And why don't we just start with you, sir, and we can go across.
Start with Larry, so we don't repeat things.
Okay, go ahead, Larry.
All right. I want to start by saying that I was here at the design review meeting, must have been 8 or 10 years ago, when Mr. Sims came to another restaurant project. I was very excited about that. Too bad that one didn't happen. And when I heard about this, I was really excited about that. And the presentation today was absolutely amazing. It looks like it's been incredibly thought out. That project would look good anywhere in town. Unfortunately, this site got a pesky historic building. And that's a problem. I want to thank you for inviting us to, the historical study was invited to Mr. Luna's office back in August. And we were excited to see the project. But we did raise the issue at that point in time about that shed building. We said it really had to go. And we spoke with Wendy at length about that. We made some suggestions what would possibly be able to keep it, but I don't really see anything that's moved in the direction of being able to keep it. I mean, it's an insult to the historic integrity of the building. The problem with that addition on the front is that it disrespects the historic building by hiding it. If you take a minute to look at the details on the front of the Antoinette Apartments, the probably about 60% of the straight-on front details, the front door, that little shed port roof, those are all gone. They haven't been seen for 44 years. The staff report states the proposed architecture and incorporation of historic building supports and reinforces the preservation of the city's identity as a Spanish village. This is not true. That shed roof was an insult when it was added back in 1980, and not removing it and further encasing that historic building with all that new construction makes a mockery of historic preservation. The staff report mentions that the city has retained the services of a third-party consultant. Why are we not waiting until we get those results before we're sitting here? Those results could come back negative. It would put this whole project back to square one, I would think. If someone wanted to make that addition like this shed today, I think that you would probably tell them to hit the road and shoot. If someone wanted to apply for a Mills Act on that building with that shed would be at the top of the list for things that you would say have to go. So why is it, how is it that anyone concerned with historic preservation can consider not removing that shed? So unlike the Olin project that you looked at the last meeting, this plan does a very good job of breaking up that long frontage into individual little sections. Although the roof line might be a little, could you show the front? Yeah, that's fine. When you look back a little bit further, the roof line is a little bit straight. But overall, it does a good job of breaking up into 3 separate parts. The problem is the most distinctive pedestrian element, that huge arch, the entry arch on that big wall, is immediately next to the smallest, most important part, the historic building. The massiveness of the rest of that new construction needs to taper down and back to to meet the smallness of a historic structure. Now, what I'm talking about is there where that arch is, that catches the eye. That's the dominant feature. That needs to be pushed back away from the sidewalk. The historic building, once you get rid of that shed, the historic building is going to be 21 feet back from the sidewalk. That arch entry is right at the sidewalk. So if you could push that back a little bit and make it a little less high, that would show a little more respect for the historic building. The elevator tower is another problem. Code apparently allows the elevator towers to exceed the height limits by 6 feet. So at 39 feet, the tower, which is only about 6 feet from the historic building, is 15 feet taller than the historic building. Furthermore, the roof of the new construction appears to be at least 4 feet higher than the historic roof. The entire section nearest the historic building needs to be brought down, tapered down, show a little respect for the historic building. The southeast elevation shows what I'm talking about well. Somehow the southeast elevation in your plans look a heck of a lot different than Mr. Luna's 3D representation. New construction looks a heck of a lot higher. So I believe the applicant can build a project that will give him what he wants and add to our downtown ambiance, and at the same time rehabilitate or restore the historic building. A couple of quick questions. Why is the DPR form not part of your report? It seems like
It's in the attachments.
it was not online.
We didn't receive it.
No, it's in the attachments. And we asked for the original form from city staff last year and didn't receive it, so we have the 2006 form in the attachments of the report.
Another question, why is it you're sacrificing 5 feet, 8 inches over on the left side? You're talking about you can't sacrifice that 600 square feet, but over on the left side, where you hit up against the project on the northeast side, you're sacrificing 5 feet. Why not build right up to the zero lot line there? If you get rid of your 600 square feet there, put your nice outdoor patio there, and where you've got that existing outdoor patio, you can pick up your missing 600 feet. That's all I gotta say.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to echo what Larry said. It's an awesome presentation. I agree with all of his points. A couple of things I'd like to see in the new building, some of the elements of the Antoinette building incorporated. In this particular rendering of the building, you cannot see on the Antoinette balcony that there are little corbels in the corner of all of those, so it's not shown there. But that will be an element that we would want to maintain and you could maybe use throughout the rest of it. The same kind of railing could be carried over. And my final point is that I know you want to keep the shed, which we definitely want you to take down. But I'm surprised that you didn't do anything to the front of the shed to make it look better. So the shed is terrible today, and it remains terrible in this drawing, and it doesn't match anything else that you're trying to do. So I'm confused by that, and I'm confused by building that entire building with all of the expense and then not remodeling the face of the shed to incorporate it, so much so that you're gonna leave doors and not have them be off-brick wall. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I just wanted to say, I'm just as a Subcommittee resident, I go by that building all the time. It's ugly. I really would like to see that be back to original. I think that the community would love it more, and I think the visitors would like it more. That it would be something that they will really want to go and see, like something in Carmel. So I think that we need to look at that really good. Otherwise, I think it looks, to me, we welcome a hotel coming down to Subcommittee, and I think that'd be great to have one. Maybe Mr. Sims would like to buy the Subcommittee hotel, because that thing needs some work. We need help. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, I'm Paul Parsons, 35 years in construction. I have a Woolley Hanson house about 3 blocks from here. And I really think you've done a great job, Michael, with the design here. Mr. Sims, congratulations on what you've put in efforts to make this happen. I agree with Larry on the removing the front. I think would make that much more appealing and really highlight the historical asset. I don't think you need to move that arch back. Sorry, Larry, I agree. I think this could work the way it is and still provide for looking at the historic asset in a way that makes it much more presentable to the public. You're also gaining about 3 or 4 parking lot spaces in the front, which will be public spots that we're adding here. So I wanted to make that clear because currently nobody can park there. And there's about at least 3, maybe 4 spots that will be added in the front to help out with some of the parking issues that I would imagine will come up with the valet parking on the Granada side. I know you said there won't be a backup, but I have a serious concern with the parking. And I think that, and I don't know if this is yours or the Planning Commission's purview, but having off-site parking for your employees, I think would be a must. And because this is going to get busy. You have a rooftop deck. I know it's only for the residents, but do you have to sign something, by the way, that it's only residents can use that?
Yeah, and what if you have a guest? As a
It
guest.
would be part of this.
Yeah.
How does that work?
It's, so the elevator would act.
No, what I mean is like over time, 20 years from now, 30, 40 years from now, is that rooftop deck available to the public? Or is it always, you have to sign something into record that states that it will only always be used for
Probably have
residents?
an elevator card, I think.
Yeah, and to his point, the CUP would
That can-
dictate such. The conditional use permit.
Okay, so you'll have a use permit that states that it's only for hotel guests.
I guess the question comes up, if you're staying at the hotel and you have guests, you can obviously bring them up. So where do they park? You know, I mean, I don't know if there's any allocation.
I have one more question about the affordable units compared to the other units. How does that work? How do you determine that? And who gets the affordable units? Is it City of San Clemente residents? Is it, at your discretion as a hotel? I mean, how does that work?
It's,
That's an issue that is presented by the California Coastal Commission. It's a requirement that they've applied to hotels. There are a lot of questions about the actual implementation of that. That's not something that the city would orchestrate or specifically require. We do have land use policies that describe it, but ultimately the California Coastal Commission provides guidance on what level of affordability needs to be provided. And as far as how that's implemented, that's going to be up to the Coastal Commission.
But the city does have some say on the parking.
Stay on parking, yes. Yeah.
Anyone else? Hey, I'm sorry, you finished?
And just for the record, if anybody does not state their name before their comments, it will go into the minutes as an anonymous comment. If you would like your name associated with the minutes, leave your name with David after the meeting, and hopefully one of us will remember whose voice.
Or they can state their
Did I
name
say
before
my
they.
name?
Or just state your name
You
before.
did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just state your name before you.
Actually, I wanted to be anonymous.
Well, you're
Too
not.
late. I already
Well,
know you
give-
are.
Give him your name as anonymous. You already gave your name, sorry. Okay, sir.
Jim Hamilton, an agreement, fabulous presentation, great idea, concept. Main issue is just the shed. Something's got to be done with the shed. We'll leave it at that. The Paseo enhancement, fabulous idea. Street to street is so needed, keeping it open.
Okay, thank you. Don, did you have?
Yeah, Don Brown, resident of the city of San Clemente and former planning commission member with Bart and some of these people. And I was here because my neighbor's project's next, but I looked at this and read through it 3 or 4 times. It's a very well done project, Michael. Thank you once again. Very well thought of. I was heartened by the staff recommendation to clear to go on planning, subject to the independent evaluation coming in, at which time, if necessary, they would bring it back. So I think it's very well done. I was very heartened by the staff recommendation.
The building has this checkered history like many of the oldies do in town. Some of them literally got picked up and moved. Houses, over to North Beach, and Antoine Price has a beautiful oldie that's got lifted out off of Del Mar on 4x4s and moved. And so this particular building got compromised over the years, and we have many structures in town like that. I'm supportive of the shed being where it's at. Sorry, Larry and the Historical Society. I think it enhances the entrance into the hotel. When I look at the plan, so they can come in and have an entryway. I would think that the front of it could be embellished slightly with a little Spanish revival or pertinence to it. It kind of got, like you say, it was added on in the 80s. That's my only design review comment I would make. Other than that, I think the project is worthy of going on. And of course, at planning, you're going to have to arm wrestle with some parking issues. But other than that, very well done for a property that's difficult and challenging. I think staff, you've done good, and so Michael, your team's done good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I have an opportunity for rebuttal or clarification, very brief?
Sure.
Yeah, so the 5 feet, Larry, on the left side is a requirement of the fire department. Fire department access so critical. We've had to give away that 5 feet. The only other thing I want to say, Don, to your comment, is we really see this historic building as the cornerstone of our project. We considered it first. We think it's so vital to incorporate into the suites. The upstairs of the Antoinette apartments are the actual suites being converted to suites. The shed roof itself, as an architect, I love all the Ole Hansens, okay? But some look better than others, okay? But yet they're the ones who are not designed very well are still on the historic list. And you know what? Our residents have gotten very used to this building and this structure. They're used to it. If it's gone, you know what? They're going to say, hey, what happened to that? That's historic, they will say. 90% of the occupants in town. We know a little better ourselves, but our community's used to this little structure. Since 1980, it has served its purpose, and it's a little bit of a Spanish little monument there. It's not historic, the addition itself, but I think it has its place, and we've respected it and utilized it.
I've got a rebuttal to her.
This is great. Why don't we get into our discussion? We've obviously got mixed opinions about the shed, but this is an informal discussion, but I think you guys did a great job, very thorough presentation, and certainly we're going to have some back and forth here. So just hold your thought.
Okay.
We have to start chiming in here a little bit. So why don't I start with my fellow commissioners and questions, comments, and again, it's going to be a very open discussion.
Put our feet to the fire.
Yeah, even Larry.
As far as parking, we can't make any decisions on that till we get the parking agreement, et cetera. So no reason to really discuss that at this time. I feel a little bit the same way about the historic. We didn't get the historic reports of either of the historics on the back or this building, or the report from the independent report. So as far as making a decision, I think we have to wait till we get all that information. We're premature. As a whole, I think it's great. We don't have the materials. Is your front door on all those features wood windows?
Oh yes, we
And
do have a material sample
I
board
did-
that we submitted with
Did I
our
see it?
application.
I must.
It's
No,
in
I
there.
saw it in there.
Yeah, it's in there.
I was looking at it. Just the graphic didn't show the
Absolute wood
the
windows.
storefront in that arch as being particularly wood or not. Just, let's see here, one comment on putting together a report for the commission. If you can use the Secretary of Interior standards with the number that shows which rule was used for
like notate it, which
Yeah,
one complies, and
because
which way?
the other members have not had that much training,
Okay.
but they were trained that there were, I think, 9 or 10.
10.
Yeah,
Mhm.
10.
Okay.
10. So on each one, when you reference it,
Okay.
give them that courtesy.
That's a good note. Thank you.
Let's see here, wood windows, parking, same goes with the landscaping until we know the parking and what's really gonna happen. Saying we can use certain areas for landscaping may be even premature at this time.
Are you talking about the urban open space? or-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there may be some reconfiguration in the driveways and whatnot, so I don't want to waste Michael's time, your time, or your money making changes on the comments today until we do get all that backup information to do it. I think the building would look fine without the shed, but it also works with it to some degree. But it's the plainest thing on the whole building. And if having started from scratch, that would have probably been a good place for the dining room patio. But the layout didn't work out that way. So, wood windows, and I sat through an 8-hour meeting on a project in Oceanside with Coastal Commission on project almost identical concept. And they talked about the affordable units and all. And at the end of that meeting, it's first come, first served for the affordable units. They love to have them there, but they're not holding your feet to the fire to say it has to be people who can't pay the full fare. So that's just a heads up on that. So I'm really pleased with the project. I think Michael, as always, has done a good job. I think overall, the concept is valid in town. You are picking up some spaces on Del Mar. I think it's only two to three probably by the time you
It's
get
actually
the
2.
access into the other site. You got to break that off, so that'll help. For you guys, when we did the general plan, Adam, were you involved in that when we talked somewhat about the lifts? Were you around that?
I do remember having conversations about
So
that.
it's been discussed and it's something.
Turntables.
Whatnot, and that was on other zones, but the only, you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
The only requirement was that the car be screened, and that's happened. That's been done, so that was the only big objection. They do get noisy, but that's a different problem. So I agree with Creo and staff that they should come back after we have a chance to review all the reports.
Just to clarify, we have not received either peer review, but we did hear back from GPA on the what's the acronym?
On the HRAR, yeah.
There's different acronyms that we use throughout
The historic report.
preservation world. But we did get some preliminary feedback, and I shared that with the applicants, and it seems like they would like to discuss that.
Yeah,
right now.
we're
So-
happy to broach the subject a little bit.
So, in general, GPA is supportive of the findings when it comes to standards 1 through 5, 7, 8, and 10. They cannot support, at the moment, findings for 6 and 9. And I'll just read what they said about number 6. So, for standard 6, the report states that as part of the proposed project, the southwest elevation of the building would be restored to its original historic appearance. However, based on a review of the proposed drawings, we cannot confirm the validity of this statement due to missing annotations and keynotes. Additionally, we identified a number of missing original features that will not be restored as part of the proposed project. We recommend that the southwest elevation, which is a primary elevation, and each of its missing features be an accurate restoration based on documentary and physical evidence. In our memo, we identify all missing features that should be restored with references to specific documentary evidence to ensure compliance with standard 6. You want to respond to that one before I move on to the next
Sure,
one?
yeah. So this is the southwest elevation. It's the one that's most visible, and the plan is to rehab it using photographic evidence as discussed in the report and as presented here. As we've noted in this presentation, there are some details that aren't captured in some of the modeling, like the tiles, like potentially rafter ends or corbels that aren't picked up. And Michael and I have been looking at the historic elevations that were submitted, and we're sort of marking it up, saying, okay, that needs to be better annotated. That needs to be better annotated, because this group, we've had discussions about all of that happening, but some of it hasn't made its way to that historic set. So our plan is to further and better mark up the notes. Also, some of the existing notes, like on the historic elevations, there's just 2 notes, H2 and H3, and they say, replace wood with wood. We're going to provide more specific verbiage that's consistent with the standards, retain and repair, replace in kind when too damaged to repair, etc. So that comment was slightly confusing, but also we view it as positive because we're in agreement that that elevation is intended for rehabilitation.
They want notes. They want notes on the drawings. We can
Yeah.
add notes for 6.
We can move on to the other one if you'd like.
Okay, and then for standard 9, based on review of the proposed project drawings and rendering, it does not appear that the proposed new construction would be sufficiently differentiated from the historic Antoinette apartments. As designed, it is difficult to discern the new from the old, particularly when viewed from the southwest along Avenida Del Mar. From this vantage point, the Antoinette Apartments building appears to be secondary to and a part of the adjacent new construction. There are multiple features of the historic building that appear to be replicated in the design of the building, such as the roof form, restored wrought iron railing design, and divided light casement windows.
So that comment is a little confusing, and I was going to ask you about it. So in one way, we want things to be discernible but compatible, right? Katie, you mentioned you'd like to see more features of the historic building integrated into the new construction. But under our design review from our third party, they're saying don't put too many of those features from the old into the new because you want to differentiate. So it's sort of a fine line. The challenge in San Clemente is that everything needs to be Spanish style. So there's always going to be some overlapping features. It's always going to be the stucco that we assume will be conditioned with some other kind of texture. That seems to be a pretty typical condition here. The roof tile. Maybe it's not the exact same shade. Maybe it is discernible but compatible. Michael and I were looking at it after receiving that comment this afternoon, and we don't see that there are a ton of overlapping features between the Antoinette building and the new construction. Arches are character defining to Spanish-style buildings. So there are arches, yes. On the new building, the Del Mar building, there's Moorish arches along the sidewalk. Then there's the main arch. That's a more traditional, just rounded arch. I don't think we can deny that arches are part of the Spanish style. So we don't put too much weight on that kind of redundancy in the design. The railing, the railing could be differentiated on the historic building from the new
And we
buildings.
are.
Okay.
We are.
So I think that the project has done a good job of differentiating while still accommodating annexation into larger new construction. So we might be a little bit at odds there, but I think it would be helpful if we could chat a bit more about that. But also, obviously, we want to talk with you all.
So
Can you
yeah,
also
then-
speak to, Michael, I apologize, but can you also speak to actually applying materials from the new building to the shed portion of the building as well?
Yeah,
'Cause
thank
that
you.
was-
'Cause
that was a-
I wrote it down. So one of the concerns is, if this were like a true restoration in an ideal situation, we agree that shed would come down, right? We agree. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn too much here. The issue is that that's valuable square footage from the applicant's perspective. And my question for this subcommittee and for staff is, what is the level of touch that would be allowed? Because we agree, ideally, those are vinyl slider windows. They're multi-light divide, but they're vinyl slider windows on the front elevation and on the side there. We agree that if that shed is retained, there could be some improvements made to it. But, from my perspective, once you start touching that, it gets into more complicated historic design review. And it sort of opens Pandora's box.
Well, I'm going to open Pandora's box also. Just one comment. David, and this is for Adam also. This view is temporary. As soon as that adjacent property owner wants to build something, they have the right to build 5 feet from the property line, actually 0 property line, up to the street, 0, and then there will be no view of the historic building.
Right.
Well, you'll still get that angle.
You'll get the angle, but if the shed isn't there, you
Right.
still have a view of it. So
Yeah,
to
I
protect
think
that
the
historic, we've got to consider what can be built next door also. And so that's something to consider in your historic report, and working with the other consultant. They need to be aware that that's a possibility.
It's a
That's
problem.
why we have a, what is it, 15-foot wide paseo here. We'll always be able to enjoy that view of the historic resource by our residents, anybody else, as they flow up and down that.
And from the street.
Yeah.
It'll be an
Uh-huh.
angle.
And also, we were at the last 2 weeks ago where view corridors of the historic property were a huge consideration for the setbacks of the home that was being proposed as well. So that would be
Yeah, that'll have to be
considered
evaluated as well.
with the new development next door, if there was to be one.
The shed, it sort of seems to come down to this, the shed, and I don't think we want to make a recommendation that's not going to support the historic evaluation of it. But the fact that the shed is not part of the original building leads me to believe that you could modify it without losing the square footage. Because the overall composition of the architecture is very pleasing with, sorry, Don, with the exception of the shed.
I said,
And-
maybe more articulation.
Well, and Michael, you made the comment that, people are gonna miss it. I don't think, personally, when the building is done, that people are gonna even recognize that that shed was there. So I think, you look at the building and you've chosen to sort of ignore the shed, which I get that, it's a lower feature. But they're all hip roofs, even your sort of mansard roofs are hip. And it seems to me that that shed could be modified to further enhance the design and maybe even provide a little bit more of a view vertically into that historic building. So I really think, and Cameron, if you agree with me, that should be studied. That shed, I agree, I mean, you can keep the square footage. That's important, obviously. But and I'm not going to tell you how to do it. You're a good architect, obviously. You can, I think, come up with some options. But I would suggest, if you guys agree with me, that be closely evaluated as a part of the overall composition, especially because it's not historic, really.
Right. Yeah.
We always like to say, yeah, just
Not a
remove
community
it,
factor.
but we get that this has to pencil, this project. And you say, well, it's a small, boutique hotel, 28 units, but it is pretty maxed out for this site. I mean, I looked at the site plan, and even on the angled setback on this side, it's serrated right along that edge. It's all the way up to the height limit. You did a masterful job, I think, of fitting a lot of development into a pretty tight site. It's kind of took me a half an hour just to kind of figure the whole thing out. But that to me is really the weak link in this project. I was going to make a comment on the sort of cantilever balconies. There's 2 of those that on that sort of serrated edge on the historic building. And you've chosen not to repeat that feature. I think that's a very strong feature because it gives you that shadow that you don't get with the recessed balconies with the flat facade. And I think you could potentially do that. And again, if you're historically you say, well, we can't repeat it. I think you can. I mean, I think you can use that to tie it in more with that existing historic structure. And then lastly, well, the parking, we have to evaluate that. I mean, I have to park on Delmar all the time, and it's a nightmare, right? So it's just going to get worse. I guess the question is, the valet parking, that's not available for people going to the restaurant, right? That's just,
No,
that's
it
just,
will be.
oh, will be?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's enough stalls. I guess since you have 28 units, how many stalls are designated for the restaurant?
So, I mean, it is a shared parking agreement. So, in the empirical study, I think it was like a 60% usage of compared to the hotel rooms. And with that empirical study, that included a full-service restaurant in the hotel itself as well. So it's basically, we counted the number of cars arriving to use the facility, whether it was for the restaurant or the hotel, on a 24-hour basis. It's not, the actual data is not in that. It's in the report, but it's not on our slides. And it'll show the number of trips and cars on I think it was like either a 15 or a 30-minute unit.
So if you're going to the restaurant, you can't choose to eat up on the roof deck, or
Nope.
to be served on the roof deck?
Nope.
Okay, but the people that are staying at the hotel, they can get full restaurant service on the roof deck?
They would, to be determined, but there will be some form of food offering.
Okay. Yeah, it's a pretty good size.
Yeah, or just, I don't know if we'll serve a full plate of short ribs up on the deck, just more of a sandwich salad.
Yeah, I guess my point is, for that to be a successful, well, people are gonna go up there no matter what, right, for drinks, I guess, but, to get full value, you probably want to have restaurant service on the roof deck, in which case, that affects the parking. Yeah, I mean, the parking, I guess we just have to see how that comes back.
Well,
That's
it'll be
probably-
interesting in the study to see how, if I was going to go to that restaurant, I'm probably not going to use the valet because that's going to cost something. They're going to charge for that parking, or all the other parking around is free.
Yeah.
So is it really providing the parking for the restaurant equally that?
Probably not.
Yeah, but people are going to park
Maybe
in
some out of
public
towners,
parking
but if you're a
rather
local,
than using it.
you're gonna go park behind the community center. and walk
Absolutely,
across the street.
absolutely.
Or you're gonna park way up and then walk down.
Or you're
And
gonna
a lot
take the
of-
trolley.
Yeah, a lot of people walk up and down Delmar and go, oh, let's go eat in here.
So they've increased the load on all that parking.
That's right.
By the fact they are charging.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
How
think
are they
people-
charging,
Maybe it's a,
pay-to-use lot?
to me, that sounds
I
like
don't
a
think
planning
they should.
commission CUP discussion.
Yeah.
Validated
South
or
of Mesa
whatever.
doesn't.
Commissioner
They
Campbell,
just-
quick question.
Monitor it.
Could the applicant give us an example of where that elevator parking is? Do you have experience with that at your other restaurants? I've never even seen it myself.
We don't have it at restaurants, but at office spaces that we do utilize, we have it. So there's one office specifically across from our restaurant in Manhattan Beach, at the ground floor. It's underground, and the ground floor has lifts. But it's basically, you drive it on, you push a button, the car rolls up, and you park a second behind it.
Yeah.
And then the modern ones are also charging stations. So since there's already power generated or brought to the lift itself, there's plugs that you can plug in electric vehicles to.
I got a quick question. So the valet is only parking the vehicles there, not off-site valet?
Correct. The intent is to park all on site, and then in the
How
event
many,
of,
how many people at the restaurant?
we'll have 100 seats.
So 100 seats, you gotta figure.
Well, you said one per
That's a
five.
lot of cars for
One
35.
per
City has a
Plus
standard
30
for
up
parking in
downstairs?
restaurants.
Is it 100?
But how many are staying at the hotel?
downstairs?
I think it's
How many
total.
of the restaurant guests are staying at the hotel?
I got so many numbers thrown out of it.
Yeah, I think
No.
the whole parking thing, it remains to be,
It's a planning commission discussion.
it remains to be seen what the.
We've
peer review-
got to figure the site plan out, so if it affects the site plan, that's part of our purview here.
Well, plus, I like the idea of using the lifts, especially if it's a valet
I work
situation.
downtown LA, and absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you work.
If you're there for the day,
Oh, and
That's
to
where
your,
your car goes.
and I apologize for, to your point, there will be validation for restaurant applicants.
Yeah.
Restaurant use, so.
Okay.
Okay.
So-
So
Okay.
the point is not to push our restaurant people out into the streets, just to not have the public use it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That should be in the parking.
And I think I
plan.
saw in here somewhere that is it 1 car per 5 seats?
Typically for a restaurant of that size.
Okay. And
Yeah, that's out of the zoning
proposing,
ordinance.
Yeah, that's in our
Okay.
zoning.
But not for the outdoor.
They
courtyard.
have 16 seats without parking.
Bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah, for outdoor dining, to encourage outdoor dining, and we certainly utilize that. Because
No
of the
parking is
pedestrian
required
overlay.
Okay, I just had another comment. The landscape, it seems a little bit, though I like the concept, I think it works well. It feels a little bit like you just sort of squeezed it in where you could, and I get that, right? I mean, there's not a lot of ground space. But I think there probably could be some more opportunities to get some vines on, like the trellis work, even up on the roof deck, which would help to kind of soften the front facade there. Those trellises are great for that. And that's, very much a part of it. I don't see any other place, I was looking on site plan, where you could get, anyway, I mean, it's a 0 setback in the front. But I think if you could squeeze some more in there vertically, and that becomes sort of part of the building, I think that would be a big
Yeah,
help.
soften it up a little bit.
Yeah, just to that point, I don't know if I got a mouse, I do. Over here, wall climbing vine. There'll be some in here, climbing wall in here. There'll be landscaping along this paseo, about 3 feet wide. So we can get some lush landscaping in here, short and a little taller. Fountain, more landscaping in here and here, a bit in here, and then around this tree.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to play
No, no,
landscape
no, no, no,
architect.
no.
I'd like to see some in the front though, on Del Mar.
Actually, there's a strip of, if you look closely, can you zoom in on that? The strip?
No, I can't.
Okay, there's the pedestrian paving, and then there's kind of a concrete band demarcation of property line, and then there's like 12 or
Oh, I'm
14
sorry.
inches of planting strip along the
So
whole
right
front.
here.
of the
Oh, I
project.
see it.
Yeah.
And, okay, so in front of the building
It's
and
a
the courtyard
green,
at the base.
narrow strip.
Yeah.
I'll ask even Don, on the fire station, we had a thin planter strip along a parking lot.
That's right.
Did anything ever grow in that thing?
Good question, can't answer it.
Okay. Sometimes those really small things for vines just,
Well, where did you say, the vines can grow, but you gotta plant the right ones.
yeah,
I mean,
they've struggled with that
It just needs to
particular
be
situation.
maintained properly.
Yeah, true.
You don't irrigate it.
It's only as good as the
People
maintenance.
step on it, and it just,
What is the width of that strip there in the front?
I would have to say it's probably 16 inches or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
16 inches wide, so, you can get,
That's plenty of room.
The
Yeah.
part of it is how you design that foundation.
And keep your footing, yeah.
right.
You gotta do it deep in stem.
Yeah.
So
Right.
along the front, if I may, I didn't show, I didn't enhance, I didn't get it into the model
Yeah.
over here. If you can see the, what happened? Why isn't this showing up here? Hold on, sorry, technical difficulty.
You missing this here?
Well, some of these materials that you have on your palette,
Yes.
these will grow anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
they'll grow out of the concrete. So put some of that stuff in there. Just again, I think just to give it a little foundation.
Yeah, sure.
And if you could see something, even up on that roof deck.
Okay.
You don't show anything on the front there.
Yeah, we really didn't address the planting, other than precast planters arrangement.
Yeah.
We'll be careful, people, stepping on planters and coming off the edge, so they need to be pulled back.
Yeah, I mean, you could do raised planters.
Yeah,
up
raised
on the-
planters.
Up on the
Yeah.
roof deck.
With really nice integrated trellises and vines.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the other thing is this whole urban open space.
Private open space?
Yes.
It's all pretty much in that driveway. There's not, but I don't know, there's a lot of precedent, I saw that in the report, for using that as urban open space. Is that really the intention?
Well, one thing I would like to just clarify.
I don't think that's what was
We have
originally
potted
envisioned.
plants on this low wall here in front of this here.
Right.
Right.
There's a potted plant on top of pilasters. These are wood columns. And then in this upper corners, we have at the corner framed around the trellis, a very low palm on both sides. So the landscaping in that courtyard is, I think, would be really nice. That was part of the
Yeah, I agree.
inspiration
Even
from the beginning.
flanking, do you have landscape flanking that entry as well? Looks like there's a couple of containers.
Yes. Indeed.
Or
Yes.
something vertical, which you have
Yes.
room for that. in there.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah, there is a light, it looks like there's a street light, is that a
Yeah,
pedestrian?
there's a.
At that
yeah.
location.
Mhm.
Okay, right there near the entry.
Yes.
Are you guys designing that, or is that,
It's
that's on the
existing.
city?
Yeah, it's existing.
Oh, okay. Can that can't be upgraded, I guess.
No, they've got a standard for all the light fixtures along Delmar.
May I ask a
Okay.
clarifying question for the roof deck landscaping? When you mentioned, are there going to be any trees that would be visible? Is that something desirable?
Not
or-
trees, I don't think trees,
Okay.
just some spiky,
Yeah,
some,
just some
something
colorful-
that could spill over,
Yeah.
and or vines up on that trellis.
So that's desirable.
That is,
For
I
some
think,
time.
You're talking for softening
yes.
versus focus.
Okay.
Right. And that little, I don't know, that the little dome on that tower, Michael,
Yes.
nobody's gonna see that thing.
Well, I think you're going to see it from afar. And this building wants to be a little landmark. It needs a little landmark.
From Rare Society, maybe?
From
the upper deck?
Yeah, from the upstairs, yeah. Looking across the
Yeah,
street.
I don't want to say what that reminds me of. But anyway, it's.
We still have to go through
Not
It's
gonna
up
be
to
shiny,
you guys.
is it? Are you gonna tile it?
What do you want it to be?
Not
hold on.
putting off a lot of glare.
I mean, I think that,
Something tiley.
again, you've done a great job
Yeah.
of sort of modulating the massing and the architecture, but the tower, if you're gonna do a dome, do a dome.
Okay.
The little,
Yeah, I hear you. Mhm.
and I think that would be appropriate. And it's not gonna, we're trying, we don't wanna add cost here, but if you have the two towers, one of them possibly a dome with a little bit wider base, whatever. I think you do have plenty of area to do that. Yes, sir.
Weather vanes, throughout town, people have those very interesting weather vanes, like they're all over town, not interspersed, I would say,
Or a cell tower.
put something in there.
So you're gonna get a lot of input here.
Glad you
The weather
asked.
vane is cheaper.
Yeah, the vein is
So if I may bring this back into the conversation of what's next. We've had we were concerned about what is the input from the third-party reviewer. We did receive the input from they don't have it all written up yet, but they did share their result for the purposes of this meeting. We did learn of their comments today, literally. So we had been pressing, can we please get their, they've had it for a very long time, okay? And so now that we have the results, and we reviewed them, we reviewed their comments, that's the only difference is you're going to get it in writing, but they did share the results. And as you can see, they're not monumental. They want some notes to clarify what were the scope of the revitalization to the existing building, and they want to make sure that we're not repeating elements of the historic building on the new work. Those are basically the two comments.
I don't think we're concerned about that, are we?
I'm not concerned about the
I
repeating
can't,
part.
I have to agree that it should come back after we have a chance to read this, because we were just given all this, looks like about 50 pages of things, and as soon, ASAP.
You want it back here?
Yeah.
Well, and
Because I
think
can't
we
bless
gotta
it
see the
until I
parking.
know the facts.
Got it.
And the parking, is that almost complete, the peer review of the parking?
I'm still
strategy?
waiting on that too.
And I guess if it supports the strategy and it doesn't, require any major changes, do we really need to see that again? That's the question.
And that's the
Where do we make
recommendation
that
of
decision?
staff.
What's that?
Where do we make that decision?
Well, planning commission. I mean, we've given them the design
I can't give a blessing until I read this stuff.
on the historic.
You're worried.
On historic and parking.
Right.
And that's the historical role of this committee.
Right, and it should be on the record, and it should be in the
Design
public.
review, and we're also the cultural heritage.
That's correct. So it needs to be done in front of the public.
Yeah.
We can't do it.
But I see
private
no
meeting
reason
somewhere.
to not get a, have a quick follow on it for the planning commission, to not hold you up, right?
Oh, so it's not a formal meeting?
No, have the meeting, but have the planning commission meeting, follow after.
What you're saying, hold a special meeting before the planning commission?
No, just have it I'm just saying, don't have it, you could anticipate that once we have it scheduled here and reviewed here, goes on to the planning commission meeting and get it on the planning commission calendar
Okay, after they come back.
after they come back.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly how it happens.
Yeah.
Well, we'd like staff's recommendation that says that if there's any major things that come out from the result, then it needs to come back here.
Yeah, that's what we were suggesting, but
But we
Mark's our
need-
historical expert.
We need to make that decision here and now, whether it comes back.
But, okay, but staff is saying that,
Because
really, if there's no
for them
impact,
to make the
staff,
recommendation.
staff is saying that if there are no significant impacts to the design as a result of the historical review and the parking review, then they feel that perhaps it can go forward.
Without our review?
If there's no significant impacts to what we have here, that's what they're saying.
I don't think they want to
It's
do
a little
that.
different.
Did I misunderstand
If
that?
I could add a little context here. There are other projects that the Design Review Subcommittee or Cultural Heritage Subcommittee has reviewed where the final peer review has not been completed prior to their recommendation that it move on to the Planning Commission. At this point, staff is comfortable with our recommendation because, one, we've received a historical resource analysis report from a reputable firm on behalf of the applicants.
Which is incomplete at this point.
Oh, no.
Well, no, they've submitted a complete report. They have a representative here who's explained their findings. Staff's recommendation is that if the third-party review agrees with their findings or agrees with them substantially to the point where we're not, major design revisions would not be required to accommodate, incorporating additional comments from that review, that this go to the Planning Commission.
In our staff report, the recommendation of staff is that it returns.
If there
there's-
are findings, which.
And I have
From what
I have
staff
no
has
way of
indicated-
knowing that at this point, other than hearsay.
Yeah, but they'll let us know.
No, staff has reported on communications that we have received from the city's contracted third-party reviewer that indicated that the only two standards that they're concerned about are related to the historical features on the right side of the existing historic structure, which, to address those comments, I don't see how any revision to the new construction would be required. And the other,
I'm not so sure. I feel that it might need a hip roof, something so the existing historic building can be seen.
I'm just explaining staff's point of view on this. The Design Review Subcommittee is free to make whatever recommendation they want. But from what I've gathered from this meeting is that it's annotations required on the plans about the features on the right side of the building, the right side of the existing historic structure, and the recommendations that the character-defining features of the historic building not be repeated too much throughout the rest of the project. Neither one of those comments at this point would indicate that any major revisions to Michael's plans would be necessitated. Because of that, staff would, at this point, recommend design review subcommittee look at the proposal for what is currently being shown, provide comments on that, and if there are substantial comments that you would have about that would potentially necessitate redesign, then we would want to come back. But if the subcommittee is generally supportive of the design proposed, staff would say it's
Yeah, I think we
it's
do.
probably
And I think it would be safer for you guys to come back to us, just once, most likely. But it's your choice. It's their choice anyway, right? I mean, they
If
can't
they want
request
to
to go
slam
directly.
ahead, they can go without our.
Or just for clarification, if I may. We already have the result of the historic review. We shared that here today.
I haven't read it,
Okay.
and I don't have anything to read.
So
So
there,
it's just, you're going to read it the way you want it to be represented, and I may read it another way.
they're not suggesting, however, any changes to the new
But they may
architecture.
say how significant that shed is. Is it significant or isn't it?
Well,
I
we know-
haven't seen the historic reports on the building.
Okay, so yes, the report that was done by Urbana, unfortunately, it sounds like it didn't get
That's the
to
one
you
you want
guys.
to read.
On either of the buildings side by side on the Granada, we never got those historic reports, right?
Well,
Which we always get in our package, and they aren't here.
but I understand your point, but our expert has indicated no impact.
She didn't say no impact.
Okay,
She said minimal.
okay, and the third-party consultant is saying no impact. So, because those were the findings that, make. Yeah.
Just to clarify, we're coming back regardless. Last thing I want to do is push on without.
And I would just say, work with David to get yourself on the planning commission agenda so that you're really not losing months. You might be delayed 2 weeks.
Yeah, we do have a time crunch. We still have the coastal commission to go.
Yeah.
Okay, and we've been at this a while just to get to this point. We've been
Yeah.
begging for this meeting. And,
Can we schedule this for the next design review meeting?
I think we need to see the parking study comments back, which
The parking study, as design review subcommittee members indicated, is the parking is a planning commission issue.
As long as it doesn't affect the site plan.
As long as it doesn't affect the site plan. So if that study did not indicate that anything needs to change from these plans, I don't see a reason for parking to be reviewed. But if the design review subcommittee would like to review review this again based on an official response to the HRAR, then staff could get that back here very quickly. And that would just be through, we would attach this staff report with a memo, short memo describing why we're coming back, and then we'll attach all the historic reports and the DPR forms.
I think there's
Adjacent
an
properties.
advantage if you could come back.
fine,
Just,
absolutely, I agree.
let's talk about the shed though.
Yeah.
If you could come back with some discussion on the shed, I think that would be helpful because, it would be better not to get bogged down on the planning commission on that
True.
element.
Mhm.
It would be better if you could come back with some thoughts on that because the square footage is of value to your business, I get that, but that's not a community value. It doesn't pencil on our side of the ledger at all. It's not a factor, right? The fact that you are going to put something there that, from all evidence, is great. And it's actually, I think, gonna bring an enhancement to that area, which is saying a lot. That's like one of our best areas in town, and you're gonna make it better. But because there's so many ways that that building is gonna be interfaced by pedestrians, residents, visitors, you're visitor serving. That shed is almost repels the whole benefit of everything else you've done. And I don't think the residents are, in fact, I get a lot of comments that get rid of the shed, like get rid of it, put a hip on it, reduce it down, have your space, figure out a way to connect it, but put a hip on it and maybe open it up a little bit and retain as much space as you can. But if you did that, you're gonna have a lot of excitement on this project with no downside at all. Otherwise, shed on, you're gonna have an asterisk, right? And it may be 10 years down the line, you're gonna look at it and go, yeah, we should have taken it down. And you're gonna have it's a regret kind of thing. So I just think if you can look at it, just deal with it now. Just swallow the pill. Go, what would we do? What are the options?
I think they're great, right?
And then come back. That would be awesome.
At least look at it.
And so I just need clarification whether, I know ideal scenario is that it just goes away completely and gets restored to the previous.
No, we're not suggesting.
I'm not saying, we're not saying that.
We're saying keep square footage,
Yep,
but
and just lower the,
improve it.
yeah.
He can do it.
Put a hip on
Just
it.
talk to him.
But it-
I want to make sure we get it in the first shot, that's all.
Michael's an expert. He knows
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
We can play with the window shapes, enhance the window openings, put some architectural detailing on it and so forth to make it look much better. But we can't lose
Even
our
consider
hotel
the shape.
lounge. That's our
We're
hotel
not
lounge.
suggesting.
Okay.
Even lessening the slope of the roof and adding a balcony, a full balcony up above might
Or
enhance it
maybe
as
even
well. That's an
use a
option.
hip roof there instead of
Yeah.
a shed,
Bring the,
That'll open up the view to that
Yeah.
historic portion of the building anyway. I'm sure you'll come up with something.
Okay?
yeah, and I think also you just don't want to confuse people with an entrance, but it's inoperable. People are shaking the door all the time. It's just, I think you can clean it up and really do the fit and finish.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
And Bart and the rest of commissioners, if you're not comfortable moving to planning commission now, I totally respect that and want to make sure you do your full review.
Well, I want to give also the public a chance to get our comments to this and be involved, so there's no questions.
Gotcha.
Because
Thank you.
everybody's going to be
Appreciate your
asking,
support.
Absolutely.
When would the next
was every
design subcommittee meeting be?
Just work that out,
We,
Is it 2 weeks or is it?
David.
we'll talk about that.
Every calendar, get back to you guys on that.
Okay,
Thank you.
we'll be back. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We welcome you to like guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice house, good project.
Yeah, it's really good.
My wife's not gonna be happy when I get down here.
She'll cuddle on that.
She will.
I'm coming too.
Can you take this little stack?
Oh, it's awesome.
From where?
We're up in Manhattan, but it's, last 15 years have changed that city quite a bit, so.
Yeah.
We've got 4 kids, and we actually,
Well,
we're
thanks
just
for letting
focused on
me
the same
do
things,
the
it's really
computer
fresh.
presentation.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure you've noticed.
that's a great tool.
It really is.
We're away from all the crazy stuff. It's really,
I think this is so close.
it really is still a sticky beach now.
We want to make sure there's no,
We'll get it first, we'll make it as good as we can.
Now it's all crazy.
no grumbling in the background. Okay, we got one more.
I'm with you.
We got one more project here. So let's.
We're gonna focus south.
You're gonna be well received.
Thank you for that.
Help us out with the chef.
Yep. I was like, this has been a learning experience. I was in education, as you know. So, to be it's been encouraging to hear that you can touch it, because a lot of the times we're just can't touch it.
So you can figure out a place to put that lava and just get rid of the whole thing. We'd be better off.
We've looked and we studied it. It's very difficult, unfortunately. But we'll come up with ways always make part of this.
Okay. So is there a presentation on the next project?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
The applicant's not even-
Done it so many
Yeah,
times here.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Chairs here. We're leaving it such a mess.
We were working hard.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. I had a feeling that was gonna take us.
See you, Paul.
See ya.
That's what I was saying. Poor
You don't get any relief?
I know.
My neighbor's up next.
Oh, your neighbor? Okay.
Like literally neighbor or just on your street?
Up the street, about over across, yeah.
Okay.
Right here.
Okay, moving on to item 2B. Development permit 23-416. Bowder, is that correct?
That's right.
Bowder edition. And you're coming back to us for the first time, right? So after the, well, you came once.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a presentation by our,
When we met, like last
Right.
November. Yeah.
November 29, I think we had.
Hi.
Hi, Liz. How are you?
Hi,
David.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Alright, so this is for the Bowder Edition, development permit 23-416, and we have David and myself on this project. So this is just a brief recap of the project location and description. It's located at 106 West Paseo de Cristobal in the residential low zone. And this project is before the Design Review Subcommittee because they are adjacent to a historic resource at 104 West Paseo de Cristobal. So the project is a second-story living space and balcony addition to an existing single-family residence. The location map's on the left side. It's that site highlighted in blue, and the historic resource in question is right next door at 104. So some background on the first design that was before the Design Review Subcommittee back in November. We have the first design rendering on the right-hand side, so this is what was reviewed previously. The DRC provided comments that are provided as attachment for the staff report, and overall, the biggest comment from the Design Review Committee was to define an architectural style for the project, to have more consistent roof pitches throughout the project, make use of the landscaping that was on the site, add a partial stub wall to the front balcony, and then indicate the front yard setback on the project plans and provide a 3D rendering for the Planning Commission. Again, this is from that first design, so you'll see on the left side, that front elevation, you can really see those competing roof pitch elements, also highlighted on the west elevation on the right-hand side of the slide. And then you'll see kind of that big column that goes from the first floor up to the second floor that wasn't really quite proportional to that second-story addition. And this is the design that is before the Design Review Subcommittee today. So the applicant provided a response to comments and revised plans provided in the staff report as attachments. So the major changes within this resubmittal is that the applicant defined the architectural style as beach cottage. There are some front gable ends added to both the second-story addition as well as to a new front porch feature that really tie the front elevation together. That column that I highlighted earlier was reduced on the second floor, so it's much more proportional to that second-story addition. There are varied siding materials. So on the previous submittal, there was white cement board all throughout the project, and now there's some plank siding, there's some stone veneer, and then as well as still some cement board on some other elevations that you'll see in the next few slides. There's a consistent 4 to 12 roof pitch, and the plans do emphasize the landscaping. There's a front courtyard area that is already existing, but the plans and the renderings just emphasize that a little bit better. So these are the renderings for that second design that is before you today. Again, you'll see the landscaping in the front yard. You'll see the mix of materials with that gray siding, and then that white cement board, and then the consistent roof pitches. And then this is just a comparison of the first design that came back to the subcommittee back in November, and then today's design on the right side.
Can you put that back up for a little longer? Thanks.
are those bollards on the, around that yard area on the ground level?
Are you talking about the lighting?
It looked like lighting.
They're little light posts. Those weren't shown on the plans. They were more so for the rendering, as I understand
exactly.
it. That might
Right,
not
for
be
the
in the
rendering.
final
may not be
I
in
would
the
product.
suggest that they are not.
We didn't.
Yes, we did provide that comment
Yeah, we didn't
preliminarily,
show it on the plan. No.
but they're not on the plans. It was really more so for the
The
rendering.
biggest changes in the landscaping design have to do with, we got positive new comments about the patio, and so we took the patio design, the style, and actually built it into the wraparound section that goes around the left side of the house facing from the front, and then added the front walkway with risers to match the Ole Hansen style sidewalk. So the walkway, obviously leads the person to the front door. But the way the house is now, if you looked at the actual photos of the house, sometimes it's hard to figure out where the front door is. This actually clears it up a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No worries.
So with this new design, staff can support and recommend that the review body make the findings. With this new design, they meet all the development standards. They have kept the same setback to maintain that relief from the project to the adjacent historic property. Consistency with general plan policies and design guidelines. However, we do have a recommendation number 2. I'll skip to that one right away, which states that we basically just look at four-sided architecture. We understand the context here. This is an interior lot where you may not have any visibility of the rear. However, there is a portion of the right elevation that will be visible, and this portion here that was left with all stucco. So staff is recommending that be looked at a little bit more and maybe add some more varied siding materials like plain siding or a combination of materials to better tie in that wall plane to the front. And then the other recommendation was to add more notes on the plan just to clarify the materials on the elevation drawing. So they have done that already, but it was not provided in the packet. And that concludes the presentation.
Okay.
We do have the property owner and the designer as well.
Okay. And anyone from public? Ron, did you have-
Down the street, across the way, about 2, 3, the neighborhood's very comfortable with this design. Doug and Connie are all part of our group, and our 100 block is tight. We have our own, annual block party, and so they've shared this with many of the neighbors, and they're very comfortable, and glad they're staying, and so far so good, and I appreciate the efforts that he's put into the property and improving it, and we're glad our former chief nuclear officer is staying around.
I love it. A comment in favor.
Thank you, Mr. John.
You'll get many of those. Okay, thank you. All right, my fellow commissioners have any
Go for it.
comments? Go ahead.
I'm comfortable.
Okay, the only thing I would say, thank you for the improvements. There's just a lot going on, right? And there's a lot of trim, like we see. I'm not sure why we need the white siding. In the front, you have white trim. I mean, I think it's approvable the way it is, but I still think it could be simplified. We don't need you got the white on the post, you got the white on the guardrail. I think less is more, might be, in terms of materials, might be an improvement. I do like the sort of foundational elements that you added per our comments with the patio and then with the planting, on the left corner there. But to me, it's just really busy, I would just simplify it. Just use the gray siding and not so heavy on the trim. But nice job, good,
Okay, thank
good
you.
response, I think, to our comments. And as far as the stucco, using the siding back there, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, it's, you don't really
I don't think you need it.
see it. I mean, you do see it on the other side because you've got,
Yeah,
you've got the driveway.
driveway.
And on that side, you've got that one little section of white. Is that plaster or what is that finish?
Stucco?
Stucco.
Okay,
We
that's the
tried-
place where I think you could use the siding. Where, because it's sort of like a little bit like a sore thumb there, I think, in the middle, because you've got the siding in the front, and it's even on a flush surface. Just do the siding over that whole side. But then on the other side in the back, I don't think it's,
Although I think our code does say 360-degree architecture.
oh, because of the, so you're suggesting that they do use
I-
the siding.
I think that's one of the comments that staff had, and I would concur with.
You guys are willing to do that? then?
Yeah, I'm willing to do that and work with staff on it between now and the planning
Okay.
commission meeting. Carla and I discussed that earlier. I wanted to hear your comments on the siding first.
Yeah, and again, I think the trim is more effective if you just see it maybe on, on the windows and not necessarily on the face of the building or, even the soft white. I mean, it gives you a nice contrast, but I think it'd be a lot more effective if it was more subtle. You guys agree?
Yeah. Can you bring up that front elevation again? The only comment I kind of have, which is not a criticism, but that whole element seems so heavy up on top
Yeah.
that, and I think it's the fact that it looks, the way it's drawn, the gable end just turns and goes right back as the ceiling. There's got to be a beam over the top of those posts.
Yes.
And can you bring the ceiling up in there? So, and maybe even make it darker? Maybe let it be gray too, because it just looks like a really heavy element up there. But other than that, see what you can do about that. Because structurally, it just something doesn't feel quite right. Because you're going to have beams going down the sides, and there isn't one in the front because the way your ceiling is dying in to the side, it just seems.
You just feel tension with the triangle. You think it's too much.
Well, no. I'm just saying it just.
Feels heavy because
It seems like that ceiling. Your windows are at what? Are they 6'8" or 8 foot?
I believe 6 feet,
6 feet.
So that ceiling in there is only 7 feet.
maybe 8 feet, right?
It should be 8 feet.
No, you mean
Ceiling's 8
the height of the door? Or no? This is sliding door, I believe, that one.
Yeah, it's 6'8".
Yeah, it's
Or 8
6'8" or 7 feet, yes.
It just seems that that ceiling in there needs to
Go up.
darken up or basically try to make it disappear a little bit. But that's up to you. That's your call.
Okay.
Just,
Yeah, that
just
would-
refine it a little bit.
Do you think the lighter-colored plank siding on the gable end is
Not
should be
necessarily,
darker?
well, that might be one of the ways of simplifying it, but I think the ceiling being so white
Yeah.
all blends in as a giant, heavy element.
Oh, so darken the ceiling.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just simplified. There's too many contrasting colors in there and textures. And I think you would like it better too.
Yeah, because we need these columns like just to support the gable and the soffit. And I believe like the trim, because the window, all windows is white, it's good to have like break this, like we don't want to make it all dark, That's why we have these trim white.
Yeah, I'm not saying get rid of the trim. I'm just saying minimize
Too
it.
much.
Minimize it. Okay? I think that's all we have, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thanks for responding to our
Appreciate your comments. Appreciate your effort in looking at the prior designs as well as this one. So thank you very much.
Well, you got a great neighbor with the dog over there.
You got lucky.
You just,
We invite you to the block party. He brings the band every year.
we'll come over, visit your wife, we'll go up on your roof deck and have a
All right.
Okay. So, let's move on. I think, is there anything else?
I see your number.
Yeah, I'll send you a V card if I can.
Oh, okay.
No,
Thank you so much.
new business, no old business, no oral or written communication. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Do you have a motion to adjourn to the regular meeting of the Design Review Subcommittee for Wednesday, March 13th, 2024 at 3 p.m.?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned.
Yeah, I'll take it
Thank you so much, Karen.
Yes, thank you. Adam, did this done?
Right now. Yes.
Did this done?
Support your neighbor.
Thank you so much.